Welcome back to another episode of the Suits in the Stadium podcast. I am your host, Casey Coleman. Joining me on this week's episode is Chincie Mouton. Chincie is currently the Director of Community Engagement for the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation. Really enjoyed my conversation with Chincie. I think the biggest thing that stuck out, and again, it came up multiple times throughout the course of our conversation, was the idea of networking. And whether you're networking to get into the sports space, whether you're networking when you're looking for a job, or even once you found a job and you're just trying to build relationships, the idea of networking is so important. She talked about how she would reach out to people via LinkedIn. If one person didn't respond, she'd move on to the next person, asking for 15 minutes of time, going to coffee, job shadowing, and just how important all those things are in building your network and moving up in the sport management space. So really enjoyed my conversation. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Chincie Mouton. Folks, please help me welcome in this week's guest, Chincie Mouton. Chincie is currently the Director of Community Engagement for the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation and has also spent time working for the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment Commission, as well as part of the National Championship game in 2018, Super Bowl 53, and the 2020 Final Four, all taking place in Atlanta. Chincie, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am hanging in. Super excited to have you on the podcast. You and I met the same time I met a previous podcast guest, Karina Harold.
Yes.
Last year with the LASIK PDP Summit, I was honored to be selected as a participant in that. Met you and Karina. Here we are. You're now in New Orleans. She's now doing something else as well. But stoked that you're both in sports and excited to hear about your journey in sports.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yes, so excited. We'll jump right in. First question, what pivotal experiences in your education or early career helped you realize the sports industry was the right path for you?
You know, it's funny. I studied communication studies at LSU. And so it's such a broad and general major that I knew I could go in pretty much anything. So I always liked the idea of working in sports, but didn't really put too much time or dedication towards it. And so my first 5 years out of college, I worked in a communications role, but in the engineering industry. And I had started volunteering with this nonprofit organization called the Young Leadership Council. And in that role, I led a youth recreational program. And I felt like, oh my goodness, I love this so much. A lot of my time is being dedicated towards this organization. I love working with the youth. I love sports. This should be my career. And so that's what made me transition into working in the sports industry, having gone through that process with the Young Leadership Council.
Fantastic. In the ever-evolving world of sport management, how do you stay updated and continue to learn beyond formal education? Are there any ongoing educational experiences or resources you would recommend?
Yeah, for me, one of the ways that I learn is really through my other colleagues, just networking, and then also attending different conferences. So I think that's a cool way to still get to meet new people, learn from some of the best in the industry. So try to attend 1 or 2 conferences a year. That's my goal for this year, is really going to at least 2 or 3. There's always, especially for me, like women in sports, I know there's different conferences dedicated for women, or even minorities in sports. And so I'm really looking forward to attending some of those. And just, I don't know, like asking people what podcasts they listen to or what books are they reading, things like that. I think that's really helpful in staying abreast on the different trends that are going on here in the sports industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of great resources, like you mentioned, conferences, podcasts, books, newsletters, all those things.
Yeah.
The next question I selfishly put in for myself, and just hearing about your journey sounds like you didn't start in sports either. What advice would you give to individuals who want to work in sports but may not have a traditional sports-related education or work experience background? How can they leverage their existing skills and knowledge to break into the sports industry?
Yeah, I would say the skills that you gain in any industry, something like, for me, communications or community engagement, that can be transferred anywhere. So the most important thing, I think, to break into the sports industry is really networking, finding people who already have the job that you want, getting information from them, asking them about their day-to-day, What are some of the challenges that they experience? What are some of the highs? What are some of the lows? What can they expect in that role? So for me, before I broke into the industry, I job shadowed someone because I thought I wanted to do what I really wanted to do was work in the collegiate field, and do like
Okay.
athletic communications. So I thought that I was going to do something like that. I was trying to flirt between communication studies, um, or community engagement. I was trying to determine which field I would go in, but I was really leaning towards communications. And so I started job shadowing someone that was at Tulane University. He was like an assistant sports information director role, and I realized the long hours that he had, the tight deadlines that he had to produce those press releases, and I thought, that is not what I want to do. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to try to gain as much knowledge and experience as you can before you actually commit to a role. That way, you know for sure that
Yeah.
it's something that you really want to dedicate your time to.
Yeah, love that. Love that you mentioned networking. We'll get into that a little deeper in a little bit. But next question: you've worked approximately 8 years so far in the sport management field. To what or to whom do you credit your longevity thus far in the sports world?
It's funny that you use my name in the word longevity because I don't think of it like that at all. 8 years, it is funny because it does fly by pretty quickly. Um, I think for me, being in this major events rotation has helped continue my career, I guess you can say. Um,
Right.
yeah, I started off doing the 2018 College Football Playoff National Championship and really had the opportunity to assist with the Extra Yard for Teachers program that they have. And so that was learning all
Okay.
the skills that are needed to do community engagement. And so by the time we got to the Super Bowl, I was really settled in my role as okay, community engagement, that's what I'm here to do. And so we had a program for the Super Bowl called Business Connect. And so that's all about connecting local diverse businesses to subcontracting opportunities related to the Super Bowl. And then we also have the opportunity
Yeah.
to provide these businesses with networking opportunities or professional development. I had no idea when I was working that program in 2019, 2018, that I would someday go to LA and run the same program and now come to New Orleans and run the same program. So it's really about taking ownership of what you have, the projects that
Yeah.
you're given,
Yeah.
and doing your best job possible, giving your all to the task, and just killing it because you don't know who's watching or who wants to take you to another level. So
Yeah.
again, I had no idea that this would be my career. Never saw it coming.
And it sounds like you've turned into a wanted commodity in the major event space.
I'm not sure how it happened, Casey, but it does seem that way. Yes.
Hey, that's not a bad thing. That's awesome. Transitioning to the advice portion of our conversation, what are the key skills or qualities you believe aspiring sport management professionals should focus on developing to stand out in a very, and I say very because I'm in it right now, competitive job market?
Yeah, I get that. For me, honestly, you have to love what you do. Like I know that's not necessarily a skill that
Yeah,
someone would recommend, but for me,
sure.
because I love what I do so much, it's not hard to give 110%, right? It's not hard for me to roll up my
Absolutely.
sleeves
Yep.
because I love it. I find that what I do is purposeful, it's meaningful. I know that I'm making an impact in the community. And so I actually love going to work every day. So I feel like for anyone who is trying to break into an industry, make sure you love it first. That would be my advice. Just find something that you're truly passionate about, something that you're also skilled in. Again, just be passionate, not skilled in it. um have those skill sets, but i think I think that passion will take you a long way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You got to be excited about what you do.
You have to
And
love
like you
what you
mentioned, that
I
it's not
hope
hard to
I
come to
hope no
work.
one's going to work every day for something that they don't enjoy and don't love. I don't wish that on anyone.
Absolutely. The sports industry is known for its high pressure moments. I would assume, especially for you and all the major sporting events you've worked, that's maybe exponentially true as well. How do you maintain composure and make strategic decisions during intense situations?
Ooh, maintain composure. That's a good one. I'm fortunate enough to have worked with leaders that are extremely positive, and so they always talk about, it's not the problem, it's how you handle and solve the problem. So there's always going to be different fires that you have to put out working in the sports industry, working in major events. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the situation, it's how you handle it. And so I think, yeah, just maintaining your composure, finding the positives in the situation, just being as calm as possible. That doesn't hurt. But I don't know. That is a good question because I never really think about like how am I maintaining my composure in this situation. But
Yeah.
there's things that just come up all the time, and just being able to multitask is also a part of it, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. You just hit on it. Just some different leaders and different maybe bosses that you've had along the way. Curious if you had different mentors along your journey that you leaned on when you needed to, and how would you say they best helped you along the way?
Yeah, luckily for me, even since college, I've always had great mentors, people that really are passionate and put people first. Those are the type of leaders that
Yep.
I've had the opportunity to work under. And so they don't mind giving you advice or life lessons. So I would feel bad for naming just one person because there have been plenty of mentors throughout my career. And not even just
Sure.
people that are supervisors. I also look up to people that are even at the same level as me, my colleagues. How do they handle different
Yep.
situations, or what advice can they offer? Because we're all going through this together. And so I really do feel like having a network and having people that you can trust and count on is very, very helpful and helps you go longer in your career.
Yeah, yeah. You're doing a great job leading to the next question every time, so I appreciate that. Networking plays a crucial role in many industries. How can individuals new to the field effectively build a strong network in the sport management sector?
So I can tell you for me, when I was first trying to break in, which not like you said, it was 8 years ago. Actually, it took me, Casey, it took me 2 years to break into this industry. I was living here in New Orleans, um, and I was working within the engineering industry, and I was trying to break into sports, and it just felt like no one wanted to hire me, and I did not understand why. I'm like, listen, I know I work in the engineering industry, but if I can be the spokesperson for a $90 million program, which was, I was leading this infrastructure program. I'm like, I can do it in sports. Sports, that's something I know. It's something I can communicate. And no one wanted to hear that from me. And I think, too, I was also asking for a little more money than they were willing to give. And so I had to
Ah,
finally make the decision that it's like, okay, if I'm going to break in, I'm not going to come in at the level that I am working in the engineering industry. I'm going to have to take a step back. And that's just a part of it. You have to make some type of sacrifice. Um, and so where was I going with this? I don't even know. But yeah, so I tried to meet with as many people within the sports industry as possible to gain
yeah,
information from them. So I really utilized LinkedIn to find out who was who. Because
sure.
sometimes you can go on the company website. Like for me, I would go to the different colleges and universities here. I would go to their athletic department and I would see who's in the specific role. And then I would try to get a meeting with them. And if I couldn't get a meeting with that person, then I'd go to the next person. And then it's just informational, just asking them, what is your day to day like? What can I expect from this job? What do you like most about the job? What are some of your challenges that you face? Those type of questions. What advice
Hmm.
do you have for me? Is there anyone else that I should speak to learn more about this industry? And so networking is really what led me to the career that I have. Um, for me, because I couldn't make it happen in New Orleans, I moved to Atlanta because I saw that Atlanta had 3 championship games in 3 consecutive years. And so I
Yep.
just reached out to the executive director. I asked him if we can go to coffee. And then that coffee meeting led to an internship position, and that's how I broke into sports. So the job was never posted online. So I tell that to a lot of people. Sometimes jobs aren't posted. You just got to put yourself out there. And so, yeah, coffee meetings are helpful, or just informational meetings. Now that we have Zoom and Teams or all these different virtual opportunities, it's like, okay, let's have just 15 minutes of time to talk to one another, and that's all it really takes sometimes. So just keep plugging away at it.
What is the key to maintaining a good work-life balance? How do you not get overwhelmed with your career and still enjoy time with family and friends and things you enjoy doing outside of work, especially in
Yeah,
the sports field that is not a Monday through Friday 8 to 5?
you're absolutely correct about that. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I moved back here to Louisiana, is because, being in LA, I was missing my family, I was missing my friends, and I felt like I dedicated a lot of time to work in my career, but I wasn't doing anything socially, right? And so um I do think it's important to try to find that balance if you're able to. Luckily for me, I I'm not in the operations of the events, so I don't have to work the long hours that some of my colleagues have to, especially folks that work for the venues, right? They put in a lot of hours, a lot of weekends, a lot of nights, and so I'm lucky enough to have something that is more 9 to 5, if you'll say so. Um, but yeah, I know it's something that all of us kind of struggle with, is just finding the time to really relax and get the rest that you need, and spending time with quality people, whether it be your family or your friends.
Yeah, love that. Love that. The sports management field's a very competitive field to break into. I feel like we've hit on that a few times. Do you have any tips, tricks, or insights that people can use to set themselves apart in such a crowded occupation?
Yeah, again, I'll just continue to say networking, finding the right people, finding people that have the positions that you want, utilizing the internet to find those people, and then reaching out to them, getting their advice, getting their information, seeing what you can do. Again, going to different conferences or volunteering, getting some experience yourself. So a lot of times, if you're able to do an internship or volunteer with an organization, you're able to meet the people behind the scenes, and then they can now speak to your work ethic. Like, yeah, I remember Casey, he did this, he did that, that we highly recommend him. And so now you have someone that can speak to your work ethic. So I think also trying to get experience, not just asking the questions for networking, but also rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. I think that'll help as well.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think
A
what
lot of
you're
times
doing,
in
I
the
think
industry.
people, oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Even what you're doing with a podcast, like, I think that's super smart. It's another way to meet people in this industry, ask the right questions, get their advice. So you like, it shows that you take initiative, so you've also participated in the professional development program with the Los Angeles Sports Entertainment Commission, so you're putting your name out there. So those are the type of things that'll help set you apart.
Yeah, for sure. I like to say that I took the informational interview thing and turned it into a podcast, and it's just way more fun. Uh, final few questions, bringing it home. What is the most heartwarming or memorable sports moment you witnessed or experienced? Maybe something we as the casual fan would never see on TV, but you had the chance to witness or experience?
Oh, heartwarming. Goodness. Yes. I think for me, especially working in community engagement, there are a lot of heartwarming moments.
Sure,
Recently here in
sure.
New Orleans, we just did a day of service. So we had 6 community activations in one day with 2 teams. So really having the teams come in, the student athletes come in and get involved here in New Orleans was pretty special. We did something with the Special Olympics. We also did Second Harvest Food Bank, and so we had our student athletes volunteer there. So there's always those type of moments where we get to do things where behind the scenes that people don't necessarily see, the things that we're doing in the community. Um, my favorite sports moment working in sports would probably be 2020 college football playoff national championship, seeing LSU, win the national championship in the Superdome. That was pretty awesome. I don't know if that classifies as heartwarming, but it's definitely memorable for me.
Yes, it probably warmed your heart.
It definitely warmed my heart.
Love it, love it. If you could switch roles with any athlete for one day, who would it be and why?
It's LeBron James. It's going to have to be a basketball player. I need a straight up baller. And I feel like
Okay.
I love the things that he does off the court as well. With with his foundation and working with schools. So yeah, and he's one of the greatest of all time. So I'm not going to call him the GOAT. I know that there's a debate about that, him and MJ, but I will give my swapping places with LeBron James for sure.
Okay. Fair enough. We won't get into the debate. If you could choose one song to play every time you walked into a room, what would you choose and why?
This one I have to keep to myself, Casey. I can't share this with you because there's some profanity in the type of music that I listen to, and so I can't have that every time I walk out. I can't spread that type of energy, so I have to think on this one. I haven't figured out which song would be a positive message and tone for people to hear every time I walked into a room. I don't know if I have the answer just yet. I don't have the answer just yet.
All right. We'll have to come back to that. Final question. You just shared one example with the 2020 national championship. Maybe there's another one that comes to mind. Sports often brings people together and creates unforgettable moments. Can you share a personal sports memory that left a lasting impact on you?
Honestly, every event that I've done has left an impact on me in some type of way, whether it's the people that I'm meeting or, through the community events, or the community programs and initiatives. So I definitely named the 2020 college football playoff national championship, but every event that I've done has been special to me. So I don't have just one, unfortunately.
That's all good. Chincie, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to be a part of the podcast, sharing your journey through sports. And yeah, thanks for being a part.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Suits in the Stadium podcast. You can still find the audio version of our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many more. New this season, you can find the video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to follow us across social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We release new episodes every Monday, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss a single episode. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.